I suppose one of the pleasures is that
in the 50s, there were few stars.
At 27, Montgomery Clift revealed a dangerous truth. Behind his matinee idol smile, he admitted to an affair with a leading man. The confession spread through hushed studio corridors, threatening to unravel his rising career. In the glittering world of Hollywood, secrets could be worth millions, and exposure could destroy everything. He was the most promising young actor of his generation. Yet one whispered, revelation nearly ended it all. How did a boy from Nebraska rise to challenge the old guard of Hollywood, and what price did he pay for daring to live authentically in the shadows? To understand the man behind the myth, we must return to the very beginning. Montgomery Clift was born Edward Montgomery Clift in Omaha, Nebraska, in 1920. His father, William Brooks Clift, worked in finance, often restless and distant. His mother, Ethel Fogg Anderson, believed the family carried noble bloodlines, though her claims were never proven. From an early age, Montgomery grew up in a house of expectations, with a twin sister Roberta and an older brother Brooks beside him. His childhood was split between Omaha and travels abroad, shaped by his mother's determination to expose her children to culture. He learned to speak fluent German and French before his teens, absorbing the languages like music. The era he grew up in was one of deep contrast. The Roaring Twenties promised modernity, yet the Great Depression crushed families across America. By the 1932, Omaha was a city of hard labor and survival, a place where dreams seemed distant. But Montgomery was not an ordinary boy, sensitive, introspective, and beautiful. He drew attention wherever he went. While other boys fought over baseball, he was drawn to plays, literature, and the subtle power of performance. As a teenager, he joined local theater groups. By 15, his mother moved the family to New York, believing opportunity lay on the East Coast. Broadway was the heartbeat of culture then, alive with jazz in the air, neon lights spilling over sidewalks, and actors crowding cafes after curtain calls. The world of theater became Montgomery's school. He bypassed formal education for rehearsals, scripts, and the constant hum of backstage chatter. It was also a time when America's attitudes toward sexuality were unyielding. The moral codes of the 30s and 40s demanded silence from those who loved differently. Homosexuality was criminalized, whispered about in shadowed corners, and punished when discovered. For someone like Montgomery, who already felt different, it was a dangerous world to navigate. Yet he carried within him a quiet resilience, a refusal to conform entirely. By his late teens, Clift had already made his mark on Broadway. Critics praised his natural style, different from the stiff, theatrical delivery of the past. He radiated authenticity, making audiences believe every word. This rare talent caught the attention of producers and directors, but it also set him on a collision course with Hollywood, a place where stars were manufactured, controlled, and judged under the brightest spotlight. And for Montgomery, that spotlight would reveal both triumph and torment. When Montgomery Clift arrived in Hollywood in the mid-1940s, he was already a star on Broadway. He had spent nearly a decade perfecting his craft on stage, starring in plays alongside legends like Alfred Lunt and Lynn Fontanne. Unlike many young hopefuls, he did not come west desperate for fame. He came with confidence, already known as an actor of substance. Hollywood, however, was a different battlefield. His first film, released in 1948, was Howard Hawks's Western Red River. Starring opposite John Wayne, Clift's quiet intensity stunned audiences. He was not the rugged cowboy type. Instead, he brought vulnerability to the screen. His presence was magnetic, his expressions layered with emotion. Critics declared him the future of film acting. Later that same year, he starred in The Search, a story of post-war Europe that earned him his first Academy Award nomination. Almost overnight, Montgomery Clift was a name on every studio executive's lips. His fame grew quickly through the late 1940s and early 1950s. A Place in the Sun paired him with Elizabeth Taylor, creating one of cinema's most enduring partnerships. The film captured a new generation's mood, full of yearning and tragedy. It brought Clift his second Oscar nomination and cemented his image as the sensitive, troubled romantic lead. He was nothing like the square-jawed heroes of the past. Audiences felt they were seeing a real man, flawed yet sincere. But behind the studio gloss, Montgomery resisted the Hollywood machine. He refused long-term contracts, choosing roles carefully. While most actors were bound to a single studio, he kept his independence. This decision gave him freedom, but also made him vulnerable. Without a studio to shield him, whispers about his private life carried more weight. And in the Hollywood of the 1,950 seconds, an actor's image was everything. Fan magazines painted him as a mysterious bachelor. Photographers captured him walking beside Elizabeth Taylor, creating rumors of romance that neither confirmed. Yet even then, insiders knew the truth was more complicated. Montgomery carried a secret that could end his career if it surfaced. The double life he lived was becoming harder to maintain, especially as his fame soared higher each year. Montgomery Clift's fame placed him in the public eye, but his heart belonged to a world hidden from cameras. In private, he sought comfort in the company of men who understood the risks of living in shadows. Biographers note that as early as his 20s, he found himself drawn to fellow actors, stage performers, and confidants who shared his need for secrecy. He was close to Elizabeth Taylor, their bond immediate and unbreakable. Many believed they were lovers, but in truth, she became his fiercest protector. She understood the pressure he faced, and she shielded him when gossip grew too loud. In quiet hotel suites or during long filming breaks, she offered him a safe space to be himself. Taylor would later say that she never judged him, only cherished him. Yet beyond friendship, there were love affairs. One, reportedly with an older Broadway director, gave him his first taste of both passion and danger. Another, whispered to involve a leading man of the time, nearly cost him everything. At 27, when his career was just reaching its peak, rumors spread of an affair with a co-star. The industry, already suspicious of his refusal to marry or stage public romances with women, seized on the whispers. Studio executives panicked, fearing box office losses if his private truth became public. Hollywood in the 1,950 seconds was governed by morality clauses and the strict codes of the Motion Picture Association. Stars were expected to maintain an image of heterosexual perfection. Behind the gates of Beverly Hills mansions, secret parties thrived. Men like Clift could meet others discreetly, often introduced by trusted friends. But discovery meant scandal. Agents, gossip columnists, and studio heads all kept a close watch. Clift's relationships were often fleeting, shadowed by fear. He longed for intimacy, yet feared exposure. Letters were hidden, phone calls made from payphones, meetings arranged at odd hours to avoid suspicion. Despite the risks, he continued to seek love, unable to deny who he was. Each relationship was a lifeline in a city that demanded silence. These secret liaisons added to his aura of mystery, the quiet sadness that audiences sensed on screen. Few realized it was drawn from his real life, and as the pressure mounted, the risk of exposure grew. Soon, the carefully balanced life he had built would be shaken by tragedy, pushing him to the brink. By the mid-1,950 seconds, Montgomery Clift was at the height of his fame. He had 3 Oscar nominations, a loyal audience, and a reputation as one of the most gifted actors of his time. Yet his private life was becoming harder to protect. The rumors of affairs with men lingered in the background, whispered in studio corridors and hinted at in gossip columns. Every shadow felt like a threat. Then came the accident. In May 1956, after leaving a party at Elizabeth Taylor's home, Clift crashed his car into a telephone pole on a winding Beverly Hills road. The impact shattered his face. His jaw was broken, teeth knocked out, nose smashed. Taylor herself rushed to the wreckage and kept him alive until help arrived. The tragedy changed everything. For months he endured painful surgeries, his once flawless beauty permanently altered. Hollywood, obsessed with image, looked at him differently. Studios worried audiences would not accept him on screen. Roles grew scarce, and whispers of his hidden life returned with greater force. The accident became a metaphor, A star brought low, a man suddenly vulnerable. The pressure drove him deeper into isolation. He leaned heavily on alcohol and painkillers, numbing both physical agony and emotional wounds. Friends described him as haunted, drifting through parties with hollow eyes. His career, once so promising, faltered. Contracts were canceled, projects shelved. The man once hailed as the future of Hollywood was now seen as damaged goods. Yet the cruelest wound was the fear of exposure. In an era when morality clauses ruled, the idea of a leading man's homosexuality becoming public was unthinkable. Studios had already buried rumors before, but they could not control everything. A single headline might destroy what little remained of his career. By the end of the decade, Montgomery Clift was at his lowest point. Once adored for his brilliance, he now felt trapped by pain, secrecy, and fading opportunities. He was a man who had changed acting forever, yet he lived in fear of being erased by scandal. The struggle was far from over, but he would never be the same. The 1,960 seconds brought both decline and flashes of resilience for Montgomery Clift. Though ravaged by pain and addiction, he refused to stop working. His performance in Judgment at Nuremberg in 1961 proved his brilliance remained. Playing a victim of Nazi sterilization, Clift delivered a haunting portrayal that earned another Academy Award nomination. The role mirrored his own fragility, yet it also showed his courage. Despite this triumph, he struggled with health. Years of painkillers and alcohol left his body frail. Studios hesitated to hire him, fearing delays and instability. Still, he fought for meaningful parts, refusing to surrender his artistry. He appeared in films like The Misfits alongside Marilyn Monroe and Clark Gable, both also near the end of their careers. On set, his vulnerability deepened the film's melancholy tone. Away from the cameras, Clift leaned on a small circle of loyal friends. Elizabeth Taylor remained by his side, unwavering in her devotion. Their bond was unshakable, forged in shared pain and absolute trust. In private, he also found companionship with men who accepted him as he was. These chosen connections gave him fleeting peace, though he remained wary of public exposure. The world was beginning to change. By the late 1,960 seconds, whispers of sexual liberation reached even Hollywood, though the stigma remained strong. For Clift, who had spent decades hiding, it was bittersweet. He had endured years of fear, only to see younger generations begin to speak more freely. The irony was not lost on him. His final years were quiet. He retreated from the spotlight, his health declining further. In 1966, at just 45, he suffered a heart attack at his New York home. Friends described his death as the sad end of a man who had given everything to his art, yet carried a burden too heavy to bear. In reflection, Clift's later years revealed both tragedy and dignity. He remained true to himself, even if silence was the only way he could survive. His influence on acting would echo for generations, but his personal struggles spoke just as loudly. Montgomery Clift's story is one of brilliance and heartbreak. He redefined screen acting, bringing a new realism that changed Hollywood forever. Yet behind his artistry was a man trapped by secrecy, forced to hide love in the shadows. The accident, the rumors, and the relentless pressure of image left scars deeper than the ones on his face. His life reminds us of the cost of silence. The industry that celebrated his talent also demanded he suppress his truth. He lived in a time when honesty could end a career, when affection had to be hidden behind closed doors. Still, through it all, he gave audiences performances of raw humanity. Perhaps that was his greatest rebellion. Today, Montgomery Clift's legacy is not only his films but also his quiet courage. He stood at the crossroads of change, carrying the burden of fear while gifting the world unforgettable art. His story asks us to reflect on how far we have come, and how much further there is to go. If his journey moved you, share your thoughts below. Subscribe for more stories of Hollywood's hidden lives, and help us keep their memories alive. These are tales not just of fame, but of humanity.